I think there's a moment in every parent's life when they realise their teenager should have been put in a sock. Half human, half Wi-Fi signal, powered entirely by hormones, crisps, and the belief that the goal of the universe is to personally target them. Your voice cracks, and at that very moment, the cracks in your parental love start to show. Everything becomes so unfair. You don't understand me. Your parents show each other a tiny bit of affection, and suddenly it's like you're watching the human centipede. I'm honestly surprised that I survived my teenage years, if I'm honest. What a horrible little twat I was. But there's one thing that has always stuck with me, and most likely will forever. When my parents sat me down one day and showed me the movie Kevin and Perry Go Large. Was this a subtle way of degrading me without my knowledge? I will never know. But in my opinion, this might be one of the most accurate films ever made about British teenagers. Two spotty, attitude-ridden, emotionally volatile little bags of spaff with two very clear goals in their mind: losing their virginities and becoming superstar DJs. Those goals may sound reasonable in theory, but in practice are about as achievable as our government admitting they've made a mistake. And yet, over 2 decades later, these two absolute weapons are still culturally relevant. Because while technology may have changed, language may have evolved, and teenagers now have TikTok therapy and electronic nicotine instead of X-rated magazines and your grand's packet of cigs, the core experience of being young has realistically not moved an inch. You still feel left behind, you still feel like everyone else has the instruction manual of life, and you're still convinced that one magical event will fix everything. Which is why we meet Kevin exactly where teenage prophets begin. In a North London bedroom, still under his parents' roof, reading a book about Anne Boleyn being executed, and it somehow turned into a fantasy about shagging.
I've got years of shagging left in me.
Whoa! I'm not gonna kill you!
You don't get that level of creativity with TikTok brain, do you? Kevin writes in his diary like he's documenting the collapse of Western civilization.
For I am a teenage genius, unrecognized by the world.
Convinced he's some misunderstood genius that history will eventually bow down and apologize to. His parents keep interrupting him by knocking on the door. Breathing has suddenly become a crime. He insists that he's definitely not a virgin, with the confidence of a man who definitely is.
All I wanna do is do it.
Kevin isn't just angry, he's a furious tower of spunk. The kind of furious that feels like generational injustice, sensing his adulthood like there's a distant dog barking at him, all while he tries to figure out who to blame. And as you can imagine, the blame usually lands on his parents.
No! Oh, that is so unfair!
Mom.
The sole people in charge of condemning his false reality. And of course, making sure he grows up in a well-kept home in an extremely middle-class area. You can just really feel the pain that Kevin has to suffer on a daily basis. Perry, on the other hand, is worse in his own special way. Same hormones, same amount of desperation, but filtered through a thick layer of enthusiasm and his BP oil spill haircut. He bangs on about shagging constantly, describing it like he learnt it all from a game of Chinese whispers at school, completely and utterly wrong, but somehow insufferably confident. Actually, I don't think I would call it confidence, to be fair, but he's definitely optimistic, which makes him extremely dangerous. Bless him. These two men spend their days in Kevin's bedroom blasting house and garage, in this dream world where they're already famous DJs and top shaggers.
Thanks, will you shag me?
Okay.
While their reality lives in this dark, damp hole of puberty. They obsess over the same things: the perfect track, the perfect beat drop, and of course, mass amounts of intercourse. And we're not talking intimacy or any real form of connection. They just want to get the badge in. You know, the confirmation code sent to their email address. The spiritual certificate that says you're no longer a loser because you've had some rumpy. Because teenage achievements don't feel real unless someone else notices. Teenage life is just a long, painful audition for recognition that may never come. Your virginity status is social poison, leading to events like Kevin and Perry trying to get an X-rated magazine from their local shop. You watch them fail this bean-spilling military operation by instead spilling their coins everywhere, then standing there awkwardly like a couple of mugs, all while the local copper watches. The perfect representation of teenage life. Nothing goes right, and that one scene alone blows the floodgates wide open for everything that follows. Because shortly after, you have a lovely scene where Kevin lies to Perry about sleeping with some bird Sharon at a house party they just randomly rocked up to one day. Not because he's an asshole, because he felt like telling the truth wouldn't really get him anywhere. He couldn't exactly say that he laid next to a girl all night and did nothing, could he? Virginity in youth culture is currency of its own. Lo and behold, you can imagine what happened. A few scenes later, Kevin's fictitious shag confronts him in the street, proceeds to call him a massive virgin in front of everyone.
Did you say you shagged me last night?
No,
Yeah, you bloody did. Stacey heard ya.
no, I didn't.
It's not just embarrassment at this point, this is essentially social bankruptcy. His identity completely collapses.
You said you shagged her 3 times, Kev.
Shut up, Perry.
His face burning red like a crusty ginger cherry tomato, as the crowd's chants turn him into a spectacle. Echoing behind him while he takes the long, slow walk home. His parents aren't even bad parents. They're supportive, they're present, they love him. And for someone who is currently starting to grow hair on their nuts, this is absolutely humiliating. Because parents represent reality, while teenagers survive on fantasy. Kevin wants to believe he's on the brink of greatness, and his parents keep reminding him that he still lives in their house, and they still cook his dinner. This is where the concept of Ibiza enters like some sort of religious vision. Kevin and Perry read about it in a magazine. You know, you've got the clubs, DJs, freedom, something I'm sure Kevin would use as his Tinder bio if it was around back then. He eventually connects the dots with absolute certainty. DJs go to Ibiza. Girls in Ibiza sleep with DJs. Therefore, Ibiza will fix everything wrong in his life. Oh no, mate. Ibiza isn't just a holiday. It's a mythical promised land. A place where parents don't exist and life resolves itself immediately. Yeah, that's right. Phil Mitchell's in the movie and all. Kevin has no time or willingness to relax. He wants to be reborn. His parents quickly say no, a fairly reasonable response considering his last school report and his attitude that is beyond fixing. And like clockwork, Kevin responds with an absolute meltdown, bordering on some sort of performance art. Claims he's adopted, screams hatred, has a full-blown teenage hissy fit and threatens to run away. In the meantime, he's there imagining his own funeral. His parents are there, all of his previous shags that definitely do not exist. All while he's just hiding in a bush outside until he's called in for dinner. Eventually he comes back, alive and furious. They give up and agree that he can go, but only if he earns the money himself, of course.
What are you talking about? You pay for my holidays. You're my bloody parents. That is what you're for.
And then you have every teenager's worst nightmare, manual labour, which Kevin immediately rejects because from his perspective, intellectually gifted superstar DJs aren't made for work.
You want me to give you a job?
Yeah.
Do you know the store?
Yeah.
Where do you find punk?
My sheets.
So in a rebellious fashion, they try to steal his dad's credit card details, and in the process of it all, they accidentally interrupt a bank robbery. Let's just say his hard knock life and excitement of one of the clerks set off a panic alarm under the desk, and they somehow get rewarded with enough money to pay for the entire trip. Which kind of fits the way Kevin views the world to a T. Nothing earned, everything deserved. The excitement isn't long-lived, however, as horror is right around the corner. His parents suddenly reveal they paid for the flights and casually announce that they're coming along too.
Well, you didn't think we were going to let you go on your own, did you?
That is so unfair. Ow!
Ibiza was sacred, parent-free. How can one perform adolescence while being watched by people who remember you shitting your pants? A typical situation that's happened to every British teenager, I can imagine. Something that you were excited for ruined by people who brought you into this godforsaken world. They don't even realise what they've just done. At the time, they probably thought, yeah, that'll be lovely, he'll love that, no bad intentions whatsoever. But explaining this to a teenager is like trying to convince Simon Cowell to stop getting plastic surgery. It's just not going to happen. After packing a suitcase case of Johnnies, puffer jackets and bucket hats, the bubbles of baby gravy, including mum and dad, arrive in Ibiza. The duo spot these two girls straight out of the door, Candice and Gemma. They're essentially the female versions of them, and quickly Kevin and Perry decide that these girls are the ones of their dreams. Not because they have any idea who they are, because they just are. And just like Kevin and Perry, reality intervenes for the girls rather immediately. When trying to get into the club in a later scene, the girls are insulted at the door, the bouncer calling them monsters.
Your faces offend my mirror.
Youth culture presents itself as being welcoming, doesn't it? Yet in reality, it just thrives on exclusion. In the airport car park arrives superstar DJ Eyeball Paul, looking like the Greek god of baggage claim, followed by his two club babes that he's remarkably named
Muff, Wankat, you dirty little club babes. Get in.
He drinks vodka through his eye, hence the name, I guess.
Gets into your bloodstream quicker.
Allows his ego to humiliate everyone around him, and somehow retains this godlike status, representing the majority of TikTok celebrities off camera. Kevin and Perry's nicknames are now Ginger Pubes and Sad Act. He mocks them relentlessly, and because of his confidence and overall demeanour, they convince themselves that he actually likes them.
It's the little wankers from the airport.
Because when you're young, these pretend dominant alpha figures are seen as these superior beings who have their lives all sorted out. So being seen by them or receiving any form of attention from them, whether it be positive or negative, feels remarkable. It's the same trick pulled by social media life coaches of this generation. They act confident, loud and untouchable, and doom-scrolling teenagers mistake that for having it all figured out. Their lifestyle is the bait. We are confusing knobhead behaviour with it somehow being cool. They sell the idea that if you could live like them, and if you just think right, hustle harder, or just, buy in, mate. Don't be blinded by a lifestyle built on being a twat. A few scenes later, they awkwardly approach Candice and Gemma on the beach, positioning themselves like a couple of anxious meerkats. The conversation goes as expected. A fake voice.
Afternoon, ladies.
How's it hanging, ladies?
Certainly a lovely afternoon for the beach, eh, ladies?
Rambling, nervousness, and Kevin seems to think that he's absolutely smashing it. The duo go out for a meal with Kevin's parents, and once again they're shell-shocked with embarrassment. They could be out shagging right now. Adulthood is once again watching him fail. Kevin, overhearing the girls not being able to get into the club earlier, promises them that he'll try get them in. You know, because now he's got this new one-sided thriving relationship with Eyeball Fuckhead. 4 hours of them waiting outside their hotel room for the girls to get ready, followed by a scene that will forever haunt my memory, so I'm gonna pass it on to you for your viewing pleasure. And how are they gonna get him into the club? Well, after being dragged around Ibiza as Eyeball Paul's personal slave entertainment, cleaning his hat, scrubbing his bathroom, laughing at jokes that are just insults, Kevin and Perry finally think it's worked. And for a brief, stupid moment, youth culture does that thing where it convinces you that the suffering was necessary, that humiliation was just character development. The doors open, Kevin and Perry go in with Eyeball Paul, and so do Candice and Gemma. No cue, no comments about being a monster, and for about 30 seconds or so, everything aligns. This is the fantasy. This is how it was supposed to feel. Ginger Pubes and Sad Act are finally living it large. And then reality once again reasserts itself. Inside the club, Kevin and Perry don't transform, they just get vomited on. And alongside the bodily fluids, the humiliation begins to solidify. The girls don't just storm off, they drift away and get absorbed by the room. And eventually, they leave with other men. Back at the hotel while Kevin's sleeping, Perry overhears Kevin's mum and dad giving it large and decides to secretly record them. And as you can imagine, the idea of Kevin's parents having intercourse is impossible to him.
Your mum and dad were doing it, weren't they, Kev?
Shut up, Perry. That is disgusting.
They've only done it once, and they had to vomit afterwards. And this tape that, by the way, Kevin is not aware of, becomes another weapon in the public humiliation that Eyeball Paul will eventually wield. Paul invites them back to his apartment under the premise of listening to their mix, which is literally the biggest goal in their life to this date, next to obviously, you know, getting laid. He makes them clean, scrub his bathroom. He finds the wrong tape, plays it, and decides to keep it. Kevin, now being aware of Perry's dirty little vlog, lashes out at Perry.
You are not
not my mate, and you are not my fellow DJ. Goodbye forever.
And it seems like their friendship at this point is pretty much over. You know, they both go their own way and reflect on life. We've all been there, haven't we? You're falling out with your best mate and your life just becomes dull. You mope around, feel sorry for yourself until eventually your parents come around the corner and they're there to support you. Mum and dad comfort him in this very fragile state of mind. Their love and affection is comforting and it's something he can finally accept for just a short amount of time. Meanwhile, Perry's building a bloody sandcastle with a kid that only relates to him, I guess, on like a mental age kind of level. And then he randomly bumps into Candice and Gemma with the men that they went off with. He finds out that these men are actually gay lovers. His faith in potential Pumpy is restored. The girls actually want to go clubbing with them that very night. Perry, after receiving this news, obviously bolts back to the hotel to go find him, only to be stopped mid-run by Eyeball Paul. And in the most confusing twist of the entire film, Eyeball Paul hands Perry their stuff back, says he actually likes the mix, mutters that he might play it at the club tonight, and even offers him a lift. Just like in real life, appreciation comes from the worst people at the weirdest time. Perry gets back to the hotel and finds Kevin at rock bottom. And for once, there's no bravado, just two teenage boys having a little sob together, making up for the situation earlier, you know, like a proper end of Marley and Me crying moment. Perry then goes on to explain what Paul's just told him, and that the girls want to go clubbing with them tonight, and suddenly it's like someone flicked the switch. Kevin snaps back. Pubic insanity restored. Teenage hope reinstated. Oh, the family meal that Kevin's parents had planned with him, that one meant to rescue him while he was at his lowest point, it's instantly binned off. There is no reflection when you're a teenager. You just move on and leave it behind. And a thing that's so real and refreshing about this scene is the fact that his parents are actually happy to see him back to normal. Yeah, he's back to being an arrogant little prick, but that's the arrogant prick that they've come to love, and they're obviously very aware that he's going to eventually grow out of this.
He's happy.
He's horrible.
They all pile into Eyeball Paul's shit limo with Candice and Gemma. Kevin and Perry show off like they've always belonged there, while Paul kind of just like leers at the girl like a man who's never been told no. It's rather grotesque, but it works because it once again reaffirms that Eyeball Paul is a wanker. That night, Paul plays their track properly, and I mean he literally played all of it, including the full-blown snuff film of Kevin's mum and dad getting sloppy on a 60-inch screen. The crowd goes bonkers, they absolutely love it. Everyone except Kevin's parents, who happen to also be in the crowd. They're just standing there watching their sex life become club entertainment. Eyeball Paul decides that's enough of that. The crowd are enjoying this a bit too much, and he tries to play one of his own tracks. The crowd obviously do not like this one bit, start booing Paul, and Paul, being a bit of an egocentric nutcase, has a complete meltdown. And suddenly the illusion shatters. And Big Baz, Paul's driver, the personal punching bag,
Be careful, you clumsy twat. Them tunes ain't spaggage. Shift, you fat tart.
you know, the only person in the film with an actual moral compass, finally snaps and launches Eyeball Paul into the crowd. The bully is finally revealed for who he is, just a wet wipe with a DJ booth. Kevin and Perry take center stage, and the thing they've been chasing the entire film finally arrives. Recognition. Not earned in the best way possible, obviously, but very much real this time. Then after a few big goals, the film suddenly cuts to a beach in the early hours of the morning. Kevin and Perry lie there with Candice and Gemma, surrounded by other couples who've clearly spent the night doing exactly the same thing. And here's where the most legendary moment of the entire film happens. They just kind of shout over to each other and be like,
Have you done it yet?
Yeah.
So have I.
Well done.
Kevin admits to Candice that he was a virgin, sort of.
Were you a virgin?
No.
And then the moment itself becomes strangely gentle. They're happy, but they're not exactly transformed. There's no cinematic explosion. Rambo hasn't popped out with a rocket launcher. There's no life-altering revelation. It just happens. And that's the genius of this movie. As a teenager watching this, it still feels like there's a victory. He's had a shag. The story ends where you think it should. But watching it back as an adult, you realise the film is doing something much smarter. It deliberately underplays the moment. It shows you that this thing that teenagers obsess over, build their entire identity around, is actually quite small once it's done. It doesn't lecture, it doesn't judge, it just shows you the world doesn't just suddenly change. Because it was never really about the act of getting sloppy, it was about the emptiness underneath it, and for the first time, the emptiness is gone. This film exposes teenagers as desperate, delusional, hormonal little tyrants who think that meaning can be downloaded in one night. Because being young isn't about getting laid or going clubbing, it's about standing on the edge and convincing yourself life is about to begin. The funniest, cruelest, and most humiliating moments reveal who we really are, and that's why Kevin and Perry Go Large still works to this day and should never be forgotten.
Gob shite.